For more than 2,000 years, China's emperors ruled with the mandate of heaven, an unbroken chain of dynasties stretching back to the Qin Dynasty in 221 BC. The Han, Tang, Song, Ming, Qing. Each dynasty added to the empire's power, culture, and prestige. But in the early 20th century, this ancient system, the longest continuous empire in history, collapsed. The last emperor, Puyi, was just a child when he was forced to abdicate in 1912. How did a civilization that gave the world the compass, paper, and gunpowder, once the richest and most advanced on earth, crumble into rebellion, humiliation, and foreign domination? This is the story of the fall of China's 2,000-year empire. To understand the fall, we must first appreciate the heights of imperial China. The Tang Dynasty, 618 to 907, turned China into the cultural center of the world. Its capital, Chang'an, the largest city on earth. The Song Dynasty, 960 to 1279, pioneered printing, gunpowder weapons, and advanced trade networks. The Ming Dynasty, 1368 to 1644, built the Forbidden City and sent Admiral Jinghe's massive fleets across the Indian Ocean, projecting Chinese power abroad. Under the Qing Dynasty, founded by the Manchus in 1644, China reached its maximum territorial size. By the 18th century, it was the world's largest economy, producing silk, porcelain, and tea. Goods so desirable that Europe could barely survive without them, the emperor was revered as the son of heaven. His rule wasn't just political, it was cosmic. To rule China was to rule under heaven's mandate, but no empire is eternal. By the late 1700s, China began to struggle. The population exploded to over 400 million, yet farmland remained the same. Famines became frequent, and peasants suffered under heavy taxation. The Qing rulers, originally outsiders from Manchuria, grew increasingly isolated within the Forbidden City. Officials sold posts, corruption spread, and decisions were delayed for months or even years. While Europe embraced the Industrial Revolution, building railways, factories, and mechanized armies, China clung to tradition. New ideas, technologies, and political reforms were often suppressed by conservative Confucian elites. China, once the center of innovation, began to fall behind. The empire's weakness was brutally exposed in the Opium Wars. By the early 19th century, Britain craved Chinese tea, porcelain, and silk, but had little to trade in return. The solution? Opium, smuggled from India into China. By the 1830s, millions of Chinese were addicted, draining silver from the empire and destroying families. The Qing tried to act. In 1839, Commissioner Lin Zexu confiscated and destroyed opium in Canton. Britain retaliated with force. Chinese junks and outdated cannons stood no chance against modern British steamships and rifles. After the First Opium War, the humiliating Treaty of Nanjing, 1842, forced China to pay indemnities, open ports, and hand over Hong Kong. The Second Opium War, 1856 to 1860, was even worse. Foreign armies looted Beijing and burned the Summer Palace, a symbol of imperial majesty. For centuries, China had called outsiders barbarians. Now the empire itself was treated as weak, divided, and exploitable. As foreign powers humiliated China from the outside, chaos consumed it from within. The most devastating was the Taiping Rebellion, 1850 to 1864. Hong Xiuquan, a failed scholar who believed he was the younger brother of Jesus Christ, rallied millions with promises of equality, shared land, and the destruction of the Manchu-led Qing. This wasn't a small uprising. It was a full-scale civil war. The Taiping established their own capital at Nanjing and nearly toppled the dynasty. By the time it was crushed, an estimated 20 to 30 million people had died, making it one of the deadliest conflicts in world history. Then came the Boxer Rebellion, 1899 to 1901, fueled by anger at foreign influence and missionary activity. Rebels, known as the Righteous and Harmonious Fists, believed martial arts made them bulletproof. They attacked foreigners and Christians, shouting, "Support the Qing, destroy the foreigner." But the Qing court hesitated. Foreign armies invaded again, and Beijing was occupied by an 8-nation alliance. China was forced to pay huge reparations, further draining its economy. By the late 19th century, the Qing Dynasty was a hollow shell. Reforms were attempted. Railways were built, schools modernized, armies trained in Western style. But corruption and resistance at court slowed progress. The powerful Dowager Empress Cixi, who effectively ruled for nearly half a century, is often blamed for wasting resources. Instead of funding modernization, she famously diverted money meant for the Navy to build a luxurious marble boat at the Summer Palace. Meanwhile, foreign powers carved China into spheres of influence. Russia, Britain, France, Germany, and Japan all claimed parts of the empire, controlling railroads, ports, and trade. The so-called Middle Kingdom, once the world's most advanced civilization, had been reduced to a semi-colony. The final blow came in 1911. A revolutionary movement led by reformers and nationalists inspired by Western republicanism swept through China. Their leader was Sun Yat-sen, a doctor and visionary who dreamed of a modern republic based on nationalism, democracy, and the people's livelihood. Across the provinces, soldiers and civilians rose in revolt. The Qing court, weak and divided, could no longer hold the empire together. On February 12, 1912, the last emperor, the 6-year-old boy Puyi, abdicated the throne. Over 2 millennia of imperial rule came to an end, not with a dramatic battle, but with a signature on paper. But the end of the empire was only the beginning of another storm. The young Republic of China was fragile. Warlords divided the land. Japan invaded. Civil war erupted between nationalists and communists. Only in 1949, when Mao Zedong declared the People's Republic of China, did the nation reunify under a new system. Yet, even today, the echoes of the empire remain. The Communist Party rules with a centralized authority not unlike the emperor's. The Forbidden City still stands in Beijing. And the idea of China as the Middle Kingdom, destined for greatness, continues to shape its modern ambitions. So, did China's empire truly collapse in 1912? Or has it simply transformed into something new? Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed this deep dive into history, don't forget to like, subscribe, and share this video. And tell us in the comments, what do you think was the single biggest reason China's empire collapsed? Until next time, keep exploring the past to understand our present.